The economy, it's front and centre. When I went through the papers this morning, it's pretty miserable reading. Let's just start with the Daily Mail here. Labour taxes leave firms in dire situation. It's nothing that we didn't know, but the number of firms on the brink of collapse has surged under Labour. This is according to the copy. Rachel Reeves being warned last night that a tax-raising budget threatens to push many of these companies over the edge, following an unprecedented 50% rise in businesses in critical financial distress.
It really is. And Sainsbury's had said that they're going to...
3,000 jobs.
3,000 jobs are going to go at Sainsbury's.
Now, I got a lot of rebuttal to that by people who were saying, well, it was always going to be in the pipeline from Sainsbury's. But at the end of the day, when you listen to people like Simon Wolfson, who runs Next, when you listen to the bosses of Sainsbury's, they're saying the employer's national insurance has had a huge impact because they've reduced it to 5,000, they've increased it from 13.8% up to 15%, and it is millions of pounds these companies have to find.
It's not even just the large companies, David. It's the small, medium enterprises, the SMEs, that are being caught up in this as well. And trying to recruit as well with Rayner's new employee laws that are coming in. Small, medium enterprises are going to be absolutely stuffed. They are. Like the haggis.
Let's just look at the numbers. Private sector jobs are falling at the fastest pace since 2009. Insolvency specialists are saying that Labour's £25 billion raid on employers' national insurance, which you mentioned, the hike in the minimum wage, could be the last straw. Look, you're right. The SMEs are the lifeblood of this country.
They are the engine. They promote hope, they promote jobs, they promote societies, they promote innovation.
Do you know, the other thing that people, I think, in Westminster don't understand is they hold communities together. Those local areas. Now, whether that is, I don't know, some community enterprise or the pub, and I'm particularly passionate about pubs because I live in a village. If you don't have a pub, you have no way of seeing your neighbours, so you don't come together. And my pub is shut, and I think it's absolutely disgraceful.
It is disgraceful, it really is. And pubs used to be the hub of the communities. Whether you drank or not, that's not the point. It's where people went, you know, to discuss things. And then we've had that ludicrous law that was being mooted for young people behind bars, if they were offended about what someone was discussing in the pub, they could be reported.
Many companies, according to this, the situation is absolutely dire. There's a really interesting quote here. I fear 2025 could end up being a watershed moment where thousands of UK businesses call time after struggling to survive for years. I know this also talking to loads of people who run small businesses. They have held it together. Many of these companies are breaking even. They're just about managing to survive. This is the final straw. Why is it that central government doesn't understand what you and I and most people in this country understand, which is that SMEs are the lifeblood, that communities are held together by these companies? Westminster just seems to be on a different planet.
They are completely on a different planet, and I think the reason is because they've got no grassroots MPs. They've got no one actually telling them what's happening. What the foot soldiers are saying down in the ground, they don't know.
But they must know.
So Westminster is an ivory tower.
But they are constituency MPs, first and foremost.
But they're not.
But they're not. So where has that gone wrong?
I've repeatedly said this on your show before, David. I don't think it's fair that these career politicians go straight from school to university, traditionally PPE, wherever, Manchester, Oxford, Cambridge, and then they're SPADs for different special advisors for various politicals, and then they're drafted into the safest seats around the country where they've got no contact, no feeling, no tie to that community, and yet they're supposed to be an elected Member of Parliament to represent their wishes and needs and wants.
I also think the minute you're made into a minister, many of those don't have the experience. They then don't spend time in the constituency. They don't actually understand the issues that are facing their constituents.
To extend that point a bit further, some of these, well, most of these ministers haven't even had jobs in the relevant faculty that they've got for a ministerial position.
And that's a really brilliant point, because I've often wondered, how can you be Secretary of State for Health if you have no medical experience? How can you be Secretary of State for Defence if you've never served, if you've never been in the forces?
If you've never had any economic experience, How can you be a chancellor?
Who are you pointing at there? Well, I keep being told off for calling her Rachel from accounts.
Why?
But,
she is not.
Well, she is, and I'm just going to come on to that, actually, because there are so many other stories. We'll talk more about that. But if we look at the Daily Express, this is a disgrace to cut our winter fuel payments. Now, we've spoken about this. Again, it seems a very divisive policy, what Labour has done. And this story is about a veteran who lost his winter fuel payment because his household income is just £5 above the threshold. This is John Dockery, who's 73, and his wife, Winifreda. They are spending their days huddling with their rescue dogs in a bitter cold in a one-bedroom bungalow. They turn their heating on for 1 hour a day because that is all they can afford. I'm sorry, the Labour government should be ashamed of itself.
They should be ashamed of themselves, but they don't care, David.
Why don't
they? Really don't care. Because Starmer's a robot. I don't think he's capable of any cognitive thinking, let alone any emotional thinking. And where are the soldiers? Where are the foot soldiers that are feeding this back to the government? Where are they? Badenoch in opposition, for heaven's sake. Her first speech was to almost attack pensioners again and the pension. It's ridiculous. They are not reading the room. I don't know what on earth is going on at the moment.
I'm glad you said they're not reading the room. Let me just tell you about what's happened here. There's a lady who's an American reader, this is of the Express, called Scarlett, who sent money to that couple. 500 quid. She sent them. And obviously that is a massive godsend for that couple. But what has it come to when this country is reliant on charitable gifts from American readers because of the policies inflicted by the government that was democratically elected?
Not only the policies that are inflicted by the government that was elected, but also the fuel, the cost of fuel in this country.
No, absolutely right. And the cost of living, actually. If you go to, well, I mean, you know, I don't need to tell you, you go shopping in supermarkets. If you look at the price inflation in the supermarket...
Just horrific.
It is horrific.
Butter used to be £1.89, right, for a 250-gram pack, and it's now £2. That price increase... And some economists actually look to Paris for this, because Paris use a lot of butter in their boulangerie, for their croissants, etc., etc. And the cost of them and the size of them and everything, one's going up, one's coming down because of butter.
Yeah.
And I'm reading a very good book at the moment, actually, called Butter, but I'll tell you more about that.
Well, I was going to say, so I, over Christmas, went and bought some butter, a particular brand of butter. It was £4 for the pot. £4? I mean, that's just unjustifiable, actually, in many ways. Now, you mentioned Rachel Reeves is not reading the room.
Yeah, I did.
And the front page of the Times this morning, Reeves, Britain needs a dose of Trump positivity. Hang on a minute, Rachel Reeves, you have just enacted a budget, annihilated this country, a 40 billion hole, apparently the 20 billion hole, which no one else can find, by the way. She says, Britain, I mean, my mouth dropped open this morning when I read this. Britain must learn from President Trump's positivity and be more optimistic.
And yet,
what?
The Labour government have been giving no optimism whatsoever to the country. Just dangle a bit of hope. You know, show us some light at the end of the tunnel.
But there isn't any.
Is nothing.
Well, she says, I've made the difficult decisions, things are going to get better. She goes on to say, we have our best days ahead of us and that people should be shouting from the rooftops. Let me tell you, Chancellor, when you're laying off your staff, when your businesses are closing, when you're seeing your local community decimated, how on earth is that good news?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, David.
And so it just shows that, as you say, she is not reading the room. She says for too long, people have been polite and apologetic about Britain and its potential. She goes further and
that's patronising.
It's incredibly patronising.
So patronising.
But she goes further to say, actually, the UK could be in line for as many as 6 interest rate cuts by the middle of next year. That's not what the economists are saying, is it?
No, it's not at all.
So where does she get her data?
I really don't know. And do you remember when she was first appointed, everyone was lauding the fact that it's the first female chancellor?
Yeah.
No one's mentioning her gender now, are they?
The other things that it just seems to me the government doesn't have any kind of concerted thinking. So she's also gone on record. I think they know they're in trouble because they are, and we'll talk about the polling, the latest polling, in a minute. But just in terms of the fact that she's in trouble, she's now saying the economy needs to trump net zero. Well, you need to tell Ed Miliband that, and she's going to push for
his box.
Well, completely. And actually, I saw an interview
not plastic,
on
obviously.
Well, I saw an interview with him on East Anglian News, where I live, and he was trying to sell the idea of having pylons marching across Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex as a good thing. And there is this obsession with net zero. Now, she's also said, now we need to have the third runway at Heathrow, we need to enhance
Expand
some other...
Gatwick and Luton.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, we should have done this years ago.
Yes, of course.
Why don't we?
Why don't we do it now?
Well, why didn't we do it then?
Oh, well, I mean, there's no point, I don't think, in prevaricating as to coulda, shoulda, would've. But the fact is, we needed it then.
We did need it
And
then.
I think we really have to... Ed Miliband needs to go. Did you hear, actually, that his brother, David, might be mooted for the US ambassador role?
Yeah, I had heard
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. She also talked about being on a high-speed train from Beijing to Shanghai. She said it's 1,200 kilometres. I got there in 4 hours. And then she says we need to discard our environmental rules. Hang on a minute. So you've got now two parts of government talking about the environment and how important that is and the HS2 bat shed and all the rest of it. And now she's saying the economy trumps everything. So I don't believe anything that they are now saying. She says we're sick of Britain being stuck in the death lane, in this slow lane, but lots of other people are saying Britain is in a death spiral. Ray Dalio, one of the world's biggest hedge fund managers, says Britain is at risk of a debt spiral. And he's right. But there is no vision, no optimism. There's nothing to look forward to.
There's no clarity. There's absolutely no clarity of thought. There is no innovation. I used that word earlier for the SMEs. There doesn't seem to be any innovation in the economics department in the Chancellor's office at the moment. There really isn't.
So when you look at that, what are your thoughts when you see that front page when Rachel Reeves says Britain needs a dose of Trump positivity? Who is she fooling? Us or herself?
I think she's deluded. I really do. I think she's clearly, fooling herself, because they are just not giving us an inch, are they?
No.
Wages haven't increased in 2 years. Wages have remained the same for everybody, apart from the rail drivers and teachers and NHS junior doctors.
So if you work in the public sector, you're OK?
But, yeah.
Paid for by us.
Yes.
It's worth saying that the UK lost 10,800 millionaires in 2024. That's double the number that left in 2023. That is the same as losing 500,000 taxpayers. And Rachel Reeves says we need to be more positive. Let me just throw that open to you this morning. Do you agree? Rachel Reeves says we need to be more positive. Do you agree that Britain needs a dose of Trump positivity? If so, how do we achieve it? The number 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. And you can message us on X as well, at talkTV.